Elias Thorne, a navigator whose charts mapped the silent dance of nebulae, never expected his routine scan of the Kepler's ghost sector to unveil a phantom that bled gravitational chaos into the void, a whisper of an impossible presence that heralded both a Cathar empath and a shadow guild hungry for the universe's brightest fortunes. He sat cocooned within the familiar, slightly worn command chair of the Star Wanderer, his long-range survey vessel, a speck of human ingenuity adrift in the vast, inky canvas of space. The air hummed with the quiet thrum of recycler units, and the gentle, rhythmic pulse of the ship's core systems. A lullaby he'd known for years. His console displayed the usual serene data streams, ambient radiation levels, distant stellar phenomena, the slow crawl of cosmic dust. Kepler's ghost was aptly named a sparse, unremarkable patch of space, usually as predictable as a metronome. Until now. A flicker on the gravimetric sensor array. Elias leaned forward, his brow furrowing. Another flicker, more pronounced this time, like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples across the fabric of space-time. What in the void? He murmured, his fingers dancing across the control panel, magnifying the readings. The distortions weren't natural. They were too localized, too deliberate. It was as if something immense was trying very hard not to be seen, and the effort was tearing tiny, almost imperceptible holes in the local reality. His heart began a slightly faster rhythm. This wasn't in any star chart. This wasn't a rogue asteroid or a predictable gravitic anomaly. This was something else entirely, something that felt less like a discovery and more like an intrusion. From the corner of his eye, a secondary alert pulsed faint, almost subliminal energy readings that his standard suite had nearly missed, readings that hinted at technology far beyond anything the Terran Confederacy, or even the known allied species, possessed. And then, a faint, almost inaudible whisper in his mind, a fleeting sensation of observation. He shook his head, dismissing it as stress. But the gravitational distortions intensified, the Star Wanderer giving a slight, protesting shudder. Elias Thorne was, by trade, a star chart navigator, a meticulous cartographer of the cosmic unknown. His life was one of lines, vectors, and the elegant mathematics of celestial mechanics. Personal matters, however, were a different galaxy altogether, one where his internal compass invariably spun, leaving him tongue-tied and flustered. Right now, though, it was professional curiosity, mixed with a healthy dose of trepidation, that gripped him. Regulations dictated he report the anomaly and withdraw. But the navigator in him, the part that yearned to understand every ripple in the cosmic ocean, urged him closer. Star Wanderer, logging unusual gravimetric distortions, Sector Kepler's Jost, Grid 734. Proceeding with caution for closer analysis. He spoke into the ship's log, his voice betraying none of the sudden dryness in his throat. He eased the Star Wanderer forward, its sensors straining. The space ahead seemed to shimmer, like heat haze over a desert road, but this was the cold vacuum of space. The distortions were coalescing, focusing around a point that remained stubbornly invisible. Conceptual cloak. He breathed, the term surfacing from classified briefings on theoretical technologies. A cloak so advanced it didn't just bend light, it bent perception, making observers unconsciously edit out the cloaked object. But such power had to have a cost, a footprint. And these spatial distortions were it. Suddenly, a blinding flash of cerulean light erupted where moments before there was only distorted void. The Star Wanderer's proximity alarms shrieked. Elias wrestled with the controls as his small ship was buffeted by the energy discharge. When the glare subsided, his jaw dropped. Hanging in space before him, vast and elegant, it was a vessel unlike any he had ever seen. It was sculpted rather than built, its lines flowing like solidified starlight, its hull a shifting, perilous material that seemed to drink in the light of distant stars. It was clearly damaged, a ragged gash high on its dorsal section smoked with exotic energies, and its previously perfect cloak was now flickering, unstable. By the first astronauts, Elias whispered, his professional awe momentarily overriding his fear. Then, another set of signatures flared on his tactical display, smaller, sharper, and undeniably hostile. 3 sleek obsidian craft, like predatory insects, were closing in on the wounded alien ship. Their energy profiles screamed raiders, or worse, the shifting hand. Rumors of their existence, their uncanny ability to be in the right place at the wrong time to profit from others' misfortune, had circulated on the fringes of space for years. Luck thieves, they were called, though no one knew how they truly operated. A channel opened, unbidden, on his main view screen, The image resolved, showing the bridge of the alien vessel, and her. She was tall, slender, with skin like polished obsidian that seemed to shimmer with faint, internal light. Large, luminous eyes, the color of amethysts, regarded him with an unreadable expression. Her features were fine, almost delicate, yet possessed an undeniable strength. Long, silver-white hair cascaded around her shoulders, adorned with what looked like tiny, glowing crystals. This was a Cathar, he realized, recognizing the species from restricted xenological databases, known for their advanced technology and their unique empathic abilities. Unidentified vessel. Her voice was like wind chimes, melodic but with an underlying metallic resonance. You are intruding upon a Cathar restricted zone. State your intentions immediately. Elias swallowed, his carefully prepared professional greeting deserting him. Elias Thorne, navigator, Terran survey vessel Star Wanderer. I detected your ship's cloak causing some, rather significant spatial distortions. Dangerous ones. He gestured vaguely at his console. I was investigating. No hostile intent, I assure you. He could feel a flush creeping up his neck. So much for calm professionalism. The Cathar female tilted her head, her luminous eyes unwavering. He felt a strange pressure in his mind, not painful, but like a gentle probing. Her empathic resonance, he guessed, trying to gauge his sincerity. The distortions are a consequence of shield damage. Your proximity is unexpected. Her gaze flicked to a display out of his view, then back to him. A new urgency in her tone. Those pursuing me are members of the Harvesters of Fortune. They will not be lenient with witnesses. Harvesters of Fortune. A more formal name for the shifting hand. So the rumors were true. Before Elias could process this, one of the obsidian ships fired, a lance of crimson energy streaking past the Cathar vessel, perilously close to the Star Wanderer. Evasive maneuvers. Elias yelped, his hands flying over the controls, the flustered navigator momentarily replaced by the trained pilot. His small ship dodged, but the Cathar vessel, larger and damaged, wasn't as nimble. Another blast struck its already compromised shields, making it shudder violently. The Cathar female's expression tightened. Navigator Thorne, she said, her voice strained. Their intent is to disable, then board. My vessel, the Void Singer, cannot sustain much more fire. My primary mission must be protected. Mission? What mission? Elias asked, even as he scanned for an escape vector. There was none. The shifting hand ships were boxing them in. It is complex, she replied. A flicker of something akin to pain crossed her features, so intense that Elias felt a faint echo of it, a pang of anxiety in his own chest. Suffice to say, its loss would have catastrophic repercussions. He sensed a depth to her, a weight of responsibility that was almost palpable. She was more than just a ship captain. There was a hint of something ancient, something fundamental about her presence. Can you jump? Elias asked, his mind racing. My ship is too slow to outrun them. Our FTL drive is damaged, cycling too slowly for a clean escape under fire, she admitted. Another hit rocked the Void Singer, and Elias saw sparks fly on her bridge. Their tractor beam is locking on. Desperation warred with protocol. He was a surveyor, not a combat pilot. But leaving her to the shifting hand felt unconscionable. I might be able to create a diversion, he offered, his voice less steady than he'd like. My ship's small, but if I overload my main sensor dish, it could create a significant energy burst, might confuse their targeting for a few seconds. It was a risky, probably stupid idea. The Cathar female looked at him, a new light in her amethyst eyes. Was it surprise? Or was she feeling his sudden, reckless surge of protectiveness? That is unexpectedly courageous, Navigator Thorne. For a cartographer, Elias felt the flush deepen. Well, even cartographers don't like bullies, he mumbled, already inputting commands. On my mark. He took a deep breath. Mark. He slammed his fist down on the activation key. The Star Wanderer's sensor dish erupted in a coruscating blast of raw energy, a miniature nova that washed over the shifting hand vessels. Their targeting locks flickered and died, their ships momentarily disoriented by the sensory overload. No. Lyra'eth, for he felt her name resonate in his mind. Unbidden, Lyra'eth commanded. The Void Singer's remaining engines flared, pushing the wounded ship forward. But one of the shifting hand vessels recovered quickly, firing a disabling shot that struck the Star Wanderer's primary engine. Alarms blared. Elias was thrown against his restraints, his main power flickering. My engines are out, he yelled, his voice tight with alarm. I'm a sitting duck. On his screen, Lyra'eth's face was grim. I cannot leave you. Their malice is potent. She made a swift decision. Prepare for emergency docking, navigator. My ship's ventral airlock. It will be rough. Before Elias could fully comprehend, the massive form of the Void Singer was maneuvering above him, its damaged hull casting his small ship into shadow. A section of its underbelly opened, revealing a docking bay. A powerful magnetic grapple shot out, locking onto the Star Wanderer with a bone-jarring clang. He was being reeled in, not gently, as the shifting hand ships regrouped, firing again. Energy blasts impacted the Void Singer's shields. Each hit a visceral jolt that he felt through the grapple. His last view of open space was of the obsidian predators closing in before the docking bay doors slammed shut, plunging him into the dimly lit interior of the alien vessel. The Star Wanderer clanged onto the deck, its landing struts groaning in protest. Then, an incredible wave of acceleration pressed him deep into his seat as the Void Singer, with its unwilling passenger, finally tore a hole in space-time and jumped into the swirling chaos of hyperspace, leaving Kepler's ghost and the shouting hand far behind. The transition out of hyperspace was jarring, the Void Singer shuddering violently before settling into the relative calm of normal space. Elias Thorne unbuckled his harness, his limbs trembling slightly from adrenaline. The emergency lights of his cockpit cast long, dancing shadows. Outside through his main viewport, he could see the cavernous interior of the Cathar ship's docking bay. It was utilitarian but clearly advanced, strange tools and unfamiliar mechanisms lining the walls. A hiss of atmosphere equalization, and the Star Wanderer's cockpit canopy disengaged. Elias took a hesitant breath. The air in the docking bay was cool, with a faint, unidentifiable scent, like ozone mixed with something subtly floral. He climbed out of his ship, feeling small and out of place. The main bay door irised open, and Lyra'eth entered. In person, she was even more striking. Taller than he'd anticipated, her movements fluid and graceful despite the obvious tension she carried. Her silver-white hair seemed to capture and refract the dim lighting. She wore a close-fitting, deep purple flight suit that shimmered subtly. As she approached, Elias felt that strange mental pressure again, a gentle awareness of her attention, and with it, a wave of complex emotions relief, concern, and a deep, resonant wariness. Navigator Thorne, she said, her voice softer now, but still carrying that melodic chime. Welcome aboard the Void Singer. I regret the abruptness of your arrival. Elias ran a hand through his already disabled brown hair. No thank you. For the rescue, I mean. They would have, well, I don't know what they would have done. He gestured vaguely. My ship's engines are shot. Looks like the main power coupling is fried. Lyra'eth nodded, her gaze sweeping over the Star Wanderer. The harvesters of fortune are not known for their benevolence. They prey on misfortune, and create it where none exists. You would have been, at best, a captive. At worst, she didn't finish the sentence. We will assess the damage to your vessel. And to mine. Right, damage. Elias tried to focus. He was on an alien warship, or at least a heavily armed one, with an alien captain whose species communicated through empathic resonance. His day had taken a significant detour from charting nebula. Is there anything I can do to help? I'm pretty good with engines, Terran standard, anyway. Maybe the principles are similar. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Lyra'eth's lips. Cathar drive systems are somewhat different, but your technical aptitude might prove useful. First, however, we should ascertain our current status and ensure the immediate pursuit has been evaded. She gestured towards the door. Come. The bridge. As they walked through the corridors of the Void Singer, Elias couldn't help but stare. The ship's interior was a blend of organic curves and crystalline structures. Walls seemed to glow with soft, internal light, and occasionally, patterns like intricate circuits would ripple across their surface. It felt less like a machine and more like a living organism. They reached the bridge, a wide, circular room with a panoramic view of the star-dusted void outside. Consoles hummed with light, displaying holographic projections of complex data streams in an elegant, alien script. Two other Cathar were present, their forms similar to Lyra'eth's, but their hair darker, their attire more functional. They acknowledged Lyra'eth with a slight inclination of their heads, their luminous eyes flicking curiously towards Elias. He felt a ripple of their combined curiosity, a cool, analytical wave. Report. Lyra'eth commanded, her voice regaining its authoritative tone. One of the Cathar, a male with stern features, replied, Short-range jump successful, Captain. We are in the uncharted Veil Nebula. Their FTL signature faded 3 parsecs back. For now, we are clear. However, the primary drive core sustained a resonant fracture. Repairs will be extensive. The conceptual cloak emitter is also offline, damage beyond immediate field repair. Lyra'eth's expression tightened. And the cargo. The second Cathar, a female with intricate silver tracings on her temples, turned from her console. The stasis field around the echo chamber is stable, Captain. The artifact remains secure. Echo chamber. Artifact? Elias filed the terms away. Lyra'eth was clearly protecting something incredibly important. He felt a fresh wave of her anxiety, a deep, thrumming worry that resonated uncomfortably within him. Lyra'eth turned to Elias. Navigator Thorne, it seems we are both somewhat stranded. My ship requires significant repair before we can risk another encounter with the harvesters. And your vessel is in no condition to travel. So we're stuck together, Elias stated, trying to sound more pragmatic than he felt. He was already out of his depth, and the Cathar's intense, empathic presence was making his usual social awkwardness feel amplified. Indeed, Lyra'eth paused, her amethyst eyes studying him. Cathar custom dictates that when one offers aid that results in shared jeopardy, a temporary resonance of purpose is acknowledged. Until this jeopardy is resolved, we are, in a simplified sense, bound. Elias blinked. Bound. Like a team. A temporary alliance focused on mutual survival and the resolution of our current predicament. She clarified, my primary concern is the Void Singer and its contents. Your concern, I presume, is your survival and the eventual recovery of your vessel. That about sums it up? Elias agreed, trying not to think too hard about the contents part. Good. Lyra'eth gestured to a vacant console. Perhaps you can assist Kale. She indicated the male Cathar, with diagnostics on the external sensor arrays. Your human perspective on data interpretation might reveal something our algorithms have overlooked. Elias nodded, grateful for a concrete task. I can do that. He walked over to Kyle, who regarded him with a cool, appraising gaze. Human systems are primitive, are they not? Kale asked, his tone neutral but carrying an undercurrent Elias couldn't quite decipher. Not hostility, more like detached curiosity. They get the job done, Elias said, trying for a friendly smile that felt a bit stiff. Usually. Lyra'eth watched them for a moment, then turned her attention to the main holographic display, which now showed a complex, shifting star chart. Elias tried to focus on the sensor data Kale was showing him. But he was acutely aware of Lyra'eth's presence, the subtle empathic pressure she exerted, like a faint, constant hum in the background of his thoughts. Later, after hours spent poring over sensor logs and damage reports, Elias found himself in the ship's small mess hall. Lyra'eth had insisted he take sustenance, providing him with nutrient paste that was surprisingly palatable, if bland. He was trying to explain the concept of his family. Back on Earth to Lyra'eth, who had joined him, her expression thoughtful. So, this family unit, Lyra'eth said, her head tilted, it is formed by genetic happenstance, biological imperative. Elias, caught off guard by the clinical phrasing, fumbled for words. Well, yes, partly. My parents, my sister, we share blood. But it's more than that. It's love, support, shared history. People you can always count on. He felt a pang of homesickness, a warmth spreading through his chest as he thought of them. Lyra'eth was silent for a moment, her luminous eyes focused on him. He felt her empathic sense brush against his emotions, and her brow furrowed slightly. Your emotional signature when you speak of them is strong. A resonance of affection. Yet this bond is not one of shared active purpose. Not a current, driving imperative that defines your core actions. Elias was confused. Well, my purpose is charting stars. Their lives have their own purposes. We support each other, but we're not all working on the same project, if that's what you mean. Among the Cathar, Lyra'eth explained, her voice soft, or most profound bonds, what you might term family, are forged through tel Neral, a shared, resonant purpose. We align with those whose core mission harmonizes with our own. These are the bonds that define our societal structures, our closest allegiances. Genetic lineage is a biological fact, but tel Neral is a conscious, spiritual commitment. She looked at him, and he felt a wave of something that felt like pity. Or perhaps a polite dismissal of his concept as something quaint, but ultimately less significant than Cathar bonds. Your description of family, while carrying emotional weight for you, seems passive. A bond of memory and sentiment, rather than active cooperative destiny. Elias felt a prickle of defensiveness. It's not passive. It's fundamental. It's who I am, where I come from. He felt his face flush. Why did she make it sound so flimsy? It's about unconditional love, not just some shared work project. Lyra'eth's eyes widened slightly, and Elias felt a sharp spike of her surprise, followed by a cooler, more withdrawn sensation. Unconditional? Forgive me. Navigator. The concept is unfamiliar in the context of primary societal bonds. Cathar bonds are conditional upon sustained resonance and shared ethical frameworks. To commit unconditionally implies a lack of discernment, a potential for misalignment with the greater harmony. Her tone had become more formal, a subtle wall going up between them. Discernment? Elias felt a surge of frustration. It's about loyalty? About caring for someone no matter what? He was getting flustered, his words tangling. He was trying to explain something deeply personal, and she was dissecting it like a lab specimen. Loyalty without shared purpose can lead to stasis, or even complicity in disharmony. Lyra'eth stated, her voice now carrying a distinct chill. Your emotional attachment is clearly potent, Navigator Thorne, but its foundation seems arbitrary by our understanding. The bridge intercom chimed, interrupting the increasingly uncomfortable conversation. It was Kale. Captain, I'm detecting multiple FTL exit signatures, high energy. Shifting hand. They found us. Lyra'eth was on her feet instantly. The previous conversation seemingly forgotten, her focus absolute. Evasive action. Route auxiliary power to the aft deflectors. Peril, prepare a micro-jump sequence, shortest possible calculation. Elias scrambled after her towards the bridge, his own annoyance momentarily eclipsed by the immediate danger. But the Cathar captain's words echoed in his mind. Arbitrary, passive. Had he just fundamentally misunderstood her, or had she just dismissed one of the most important things in his life? The misunderstanding, sharp and uncomfortable, hung in the air between them, an invisible barrier, even as they prepared to face a common enemy. Their forced proximity had just become a crucible, and the cultural chasm between them felt wider than the nebula they were hiding in. The shifting hand ships burst from hyperspace, their obsidian hulls gleaming menacingly against the swirling colors of the uncharted veil. They were faster, more numerous than before. Clearly, they were determined. The Void Singer lurched as the first energy bolt struck its weakened shields. Shields at 40%. Kel reported, his voice tight. They're trying to bracket us. Peril, status on the micro-jump. Lyra'eth demanded, her hands flying over her own console, rerouting power, her face a mask of concentration. Elias felt her focus, a sharp, intense beam of mental energy, but underneath it, he also sensed a flicker of her earlier judgment of him, a coolness that hadn't been there before their conversation about family. Calculation is unstable, Captain. The nebula's gravimetric shear is interfering. Peril, the female Cathar, replied, her usual calm frayed. Elias, standing somewhat uselessly near his now darkened borrowed console, felt a surge of adrenaline. His earlier irritation at Lyra'eth was overshadowed by the immediate threat. Their formation, he said, pointing at the tactical display. They're trying to herd us towards that dense particle cloud. It'll play hell with our sensors and maneuverability, but it'll do the same to theirs if they follow. Lyra'eth glanced at him, a flicker of surprise in her amethyst eyes. A valid tactical observation, Navigator. Kale, plot a course into the densest part of the cloud. Peril, use the interference to mask our jump signature if you get a window. Acknowledged, Captain. The Void Singer plunged into the swirling maelstrom of charged particles and interstellar dust. Visibility dropped to near zero, the view screen showing only a chaotic dance of light and shadow. The ship shuddered continuously as it navigated the turbulent currents. The shifting hand ships pursued, firing blindly into the cloud. They're still on us? Kale grunted as another near miss rocked the bridge. Persistent. They desire what I protect. Lyra'eth said, her voice low. She spared a glance at Elias. And now, they likely desire retribution for your earlier diversion. Elias winced. Sorry about that. It bought us time, she conceded, a grudging admission. The atmosphere on the bridge was thick with tension. Elias felt utterly out of his element, yet a strange resolve was hardening within him. He might be a flustered navigator in personal matters, and he might have offended the captain with his clumsy explanation of human affection, but he wouldn't be a liability. Suddenly Terrell cried out, Captain! Gravimetric pulse! Something big is decloaking directly ahead! On the view screen, a colossal shape began to coalesce out of the particle cloud, a shifting hand capital ship. 10 times the size of the pursuing raiders, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements. It was a trap. I'll power to forward shields. Lyra'eth commanded, her voice like ice. Evasive pattern Delta! But it was too late. A focused tractor beam shot from the capital ship, locking onto the Void Singer with brutal efficiency. The ship groaned, its engine straining against the irresistible pull. We're caught, Captain? Kale exclaimed, his composure finally cracking. Lyra'eth closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, and Elias felt a wave of despair wash over him, so potent it was clearly hers. Then, her eyes snapped open, blazing with a fierce light. Not yet. Peril, the echo chamber. Is it prepared for emergency resonance release? Peril looked horrified. Captain, that's a last resort. The feedback could be catastrophic for you. We have no other options. Lyra'eth stated. Navigator Thorne. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. Your presence here is an accident of fate, but your insights have, twice now, been pertinent. I am about to attempt something dangerous. It may create a window. If it does, Kale will attempt to break free. You must secure yourself. What are you going to do? Elias asked, his voice hushed. I am an echo of creation, Navigator, she said, a strange resonance in her voice that seemed to vibrate in his very bones. It is time I reminded these harvesters what that means. She placed her hands on her console, and the internal lights of the bridge dimmed, focusing a soft glow on her. The silver crystals in her hair began to pulse with an inner light. He felt a colossal buildup of energy, not from the ship systems, but from Lyra'eth herself. It was as if the very fabric of the nebula around them was responding to her, coiling, concentrating. This was clearly beyond any technology Elias understood. This was something fundamental, tied to her unique nature. The forced proximity was no longer just about sharing a damaged ship. It was about witnessing something extraordinary and terrifying. He braced himself, grabbing onto the edge of a console, his earlier misunderstanding with Lyra'eth feeling distant and trivial in the face of this new, awe-inspiring reality. The fate of everyone on board, and perhaps much more, rested on this Cathar female and the incredible power she was about to unleash. The energy Lyra'eth was gathering became almost unbearable. The air crackled, and the holographic displays flickered wildly. Elias felt his hair stand on end. Kale and Peril were rigid at their stations, their faces pale but resolute. Lyra'eth's eyes were closed, her expression serene yet immensely powerful, as if she were communing with the very heart of the cosmos. The Void Singer itself began to hum, not with the strain of the tractor beam, but with a sympathetic vibration to the energy Lyra'eth was channeling. Then, she opened her eyes. They were no longer amethyst, but pools of pure, white starlight. No, she whispered, and the sound was like the birth of a galaxy. A wave of pure, untamed cosmic energy erupted from the Void Singer, not as a weapon, but as a resonance, a fundamental frequency that shook the shifting hand capital ship to its core. It wasn't destruct in the conventional sense. It was disruptive. The tractor beam holding them flickered and died. The enemy ship's systems went haywire, lights blinking erratically across its vast hull. The smaller raiders caught in the wave, spun out of control, their engines sputtering. The beam is down. Kale shouted, seizing the opportunity. Full power to engines? Peril, get us out of this cloud! The Void Singer leaped forward, a wounded animal escaping the hunter's snare. Lyra'eth slumped against her console, the brilliant light in her eyes fading back to their normal amethyst, though they looked clouded with exhaustion. The silver crystals in her hair dimmed. Elias felt the sudden absence of that immense power, leaving an almost physical void. He rushed to her side. Lyra'eth! Are you all right? He instinctively reached out, then hesitated, remembering her earlier coolness, his hand hovering awkwardly. She looked up at him, a faint, wary smile touching her lips. The echo recedes. I am drained, but functional. Her gaze was softer now, the sharp edges of their earlier cultural clash, seemingly smoothed by the intensity of the moment. Your concern, Navigator, I feel it. It is a clear frequency. Elias felt his face warm but managed a shaky smile. You just saved all our lives, again. I think concern is pretty standard in that situation. They broke free from the particle cloud, leaving the disoriented shifting hand fleet behind. Peril quickly plotted a series of random micro-jumps, making pursuit all but impossible. Finally, they dropped out of hyperspace into a quiet, uncharted system, alone, blue star casting a serene glow upon the Void Singer. Silence descended on the bridge, broken only by the soft hum of the ship. Kale and Terrell were busy running diagnostics, their relief palpable. Lyra'eth pushed herself upright, taking a slow, deep breath. "We are safe, for now," she announced, her voice still a little weak. "But that maneuver has taken its toll, both on me and on the ship's more sensitive systems. We need a secure location for significant repairs, and to understand why the harvesters are so relentlessly pursuing us." Elias nodded. "They seem to know you were coming. That capital ship wasn't there by chance." "Indeed." Lyra'eth looked at him, a new consideration in her eyes. "Navigator Thorne, your presence on this vessel was unintended. Yet you have not been a passive observer. Perhaps our temporary resonance of purpose can be more active than I initially presumed." The memory of their earlier stilted conversation about family surfaced in Elias's mind. He still felt a sting from her assessment of his human bonds as arbitrary, but seeing her unleash such power, such sacrifice, had shifted something in him, and her acknowledgement of his clear frequency of concern, it felt like a tiny bridge across the chasm of their differences. "I want to help, Lyra'eth," he said, meeting her gaze directly. "I may not understand Cathar purpose bonds, or echoes of creation, but I know when someone's in trouble and needs a hand. And frankly, those shifting hand creeps give me the shivers." A genuine, if small smile graced her lips this time. "Their methods are abhorrent. They drain the light from existence." She paused. "There is something I must show you. Something that is central to my mission, the reason for their pursuit. It may help you understand the stakes." She led him from the bridge, down a corridor that spiraled gently deeper into the ship. The lighting here was dimmer, the walls inscribed with intricate, glowing Cathar script that seemed to shift and flow like water. They arrived at a large, circular door, sealed with complex, interlocking mechanisms. Lyra'eth placed her palm on a glowing panel beside it. The mechanisms retracted with a soft hiss, and the door rised open, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft, ethereal light. In the center of the room, floating above a crystalline pedestal, was a book. Or at least, it resembled a book. Its cover was made of a material that looked like solidified nebula, swirling with impossible colors. As they entered, the book seemed to sense their presence. Its pages, which appeared to be made of pure light and shadow, began to ripple and flow, reconfiguring themselves, forming intricate patterns and symbols that Elias had never seen before. "This," Lyra'eth said, her voice filled with reverence, "is the Living Codex. It is an artifact of the first ones, a repository of forgotten knowledge, a guide and a burden." Elias stared, mesmerized. "It's alive, in a way." "Yes," Lyra'eth affirmed. "It responds to specific resonant frequencies, to intent. It is the reason I am the echo of creation. My unique biological signature allows me to commune with it, to decipher its wisdom. The Cathar have been its guardians for millennia." Her hand went to her chest, a gesture of profound connection. "The Codex showed me the rising darkness of the shifting hand, their plan to create widespread despair and harvest the resulting negative quintessence for their own terrible ends. It guided me to Kepler's Jost, where it sensed a nexus of their activity. The pages of the Living Codex swirled faster, and a holographic image shimmered into existence above it, a beautiful, verdant planet teeming with life. Then, the image shifted, showing shifting hand vessels descending upon it, and vast, terrifying machines beginning to drill into its surface. "They are targeting Xylos," Lyra'eth said, her voice tight with pain. Elias felt an echo of her distress, a deep sorrow for the vibrant world he was seeing. "It is a planet sacred to the Lumina, a peaceful, ancient species. The harvesters intend to hollow it out, to transform it into a dead husk, a monument to their power and a new source for their draining." She looked at Elias, her amethyst eyes filled with a desperate plea. "The Codex shows that Xylos is a keystone. Its destruction would unbalance this entire sector, perhaps more. We must stop them." Elias looked from the horrifying image to Lyra'eth's determined, exhausted face. He thought of her earlier dismissal of his concept of family. Perhaps Cathar bonds were different, forged in shared purpose. But looking at her now, seeing her dedication, her willingness to sacrifice, he felt a connection that transcended cultural definitions. This was a purpose he could understand, a purpose he could share. "How do we stop them?" he asked, his voice firm. "What does the Codex say?" Lyra'eth reached out, her slender fingers hovering just above the swirling pages of the Living Codex. "It says, we are not alone in this fight, if we choose to accept the alliances it offers. And it says that the key to their undoing lies not just in strength, but in understanding the nature of what they steal, and what truly gives the universe its light. The pages shimmered, and for a fleeting moment, Elias thought he saw an image of Earth, brilliant and blue, reflected in their depths. Then it was gone. The journey to the hidden Kepler repair station, a cloaked asteroid base deep within a dense cluster of protostars, was tense but uneventful. Elias spent much of it learning from Kale and Terrell, absorbing what he could about Kepler technology. He found their systems elegant, intuitive in a way Terran tech often wasn't, relying as much on resonant frequencies and energy harmonics as on brute mechanics. He proved surprisingly adept at recalibrating damaged sensor arrays, his navigator's mind for complex patterns finding an unexpected synergy with Kepler design philosophy. Lyra'eth, while still recovering her strength, observed him often, a thoughtful expression on her face. The coolness from their earlier misunderstanding had thawed, replaced by a cautious curiosity on her part, and a growing respect on his. In the quiet moments, when they were both off duty, they would often find themselves in the chamber of the Living Codex. Elias was fascinated by it. He couldn't read its shifting, luminous script, but Lyra'eth would translate its insights, her voice soft as she spoke of cosmic histories, of forgotten civilizations, of the delicate balance of energies that sustained the universe. He learned more about her role as the echo of creation. It wasn't a title, but a literal state of being. She was uniquely attuned to the universe's foundational harmonies, the echoes of its birth. This was why she could interface with the Codex, and why the resonance release had been so potent, yet so draining. The Kepler believe. She explained one cycle, as they watched the Codex display a swirling map of energy currents across the galaxy. That creation itself was an act of pure, resonant purpose. Some individuals, through rare genetic alignments and spiritual discipline, can touch upon that primal echo. It is both a gift and an immense responsibility. And the shifting hand? Elias asked. What do they want with all this quintessence they steal? Power? Lyra'eth said simply. They believe that positive emotional energy, hope, joy, luck, these are finite resources. They see themselves as reallocators. They drain it from those they deem undeserving or wake and use it to fuel their technology, their expansion, their desire to impose their bleak order on the galaxy. Xylos, with its profound natural harmony and the joyful spirit of the Lumina, is like a beacon to them, a feast. Her empathic resonance conveyed a deep disgust that Elias found himself sharing. He, in turn, tried to explain more about Earth, about human diversity, our art, our music, our often contradictory nature, our capacity for great cruelty and equally great compassion. He talked about his own small life, his love for the stars, his longing to map the unknown, not to conquer it, but to understand it. Lyra'eth listened intently, her empathic sense absorbing not just his words, but the emotions behind them. He noticed she no longer used terms like arbitrary or passive when he spoke of his connections. Instead, she would often tilt her head, a thoughtful frown on her face, as if trying to fit these new, complex human emotions into her understanding of the universe. One evening, while the Void Singer was undergoing repairs within the asteroid base, a delicate tracery of energy filaments, connecting it to the station's core, they were alone in the Codex chamber. Lyra'eth was attempting a deep communion with the Codex, seeking a weakness in the shifting hands plan for Xylos. The effort was clearly taxing. Her skin was pale, and a fine tremor ran through her hands as she held them above the swirling pages. Elias watched her, a knot of anxiety in his own chest. He felt her strain, her exhaustion, like a faint echo in his own body. He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. He just stayed. He pulled up a small stool, sitting quietly nearby, a silent, supportive presence. After a long while, Lyra'eth swayed, a soft gasp escaping her lips. Elias was by her side in an instant, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady her arm. Lyra'eth? Are you okay? Maybe you should rest. Her fingers closed around his arm, her touch surprisingly strong despite her fatigue. Her eyes, when she opened them, were unfocused for a moment, then cleared, locking onto his. He felt a jolt, a sudden, intense wave of her emotions, not just wariness, but gratitude, surprise, and something else, something warm and searching. Your presence, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. It grounds me. Your emotional signature, Elias Thorne, it is unexpectedly strong and steady. Like a fixed point in a storm. She leaned slightly against him, a moment of uncharacteristic vulnerability. Elias's heart hammered in his chest. He could feel the fine tremor in her arm, the coolness of her skin. His own natural flusterness threatened to overwhelm him, but he fought it down, focusing on her need. "I'm just here," he managed, his voice a little husky. "Happy to be Alan Anchor, if you need one." She looked up at him, her amethyst eyes searching his. He could feel her empathic sense delicately probing his emotions, his worry for her, his admiration, the confusing, burgeoning tenderness he was starting to feel. For a Cathar who based relationships on shared purpose, this raw, unasked for concern from an outsider, a human, must have been different. "Among my people," she said softly. Such unsolicited emotional support, without a declared telneral, is rare. We offer strength through shared mission, through logical counsel. This simple, quiet solidarity, it is new. Her gaze softened. And not unwelcome. Elias's breath caught. He could feel the warmth of her body through the thin fabric of her sleeve. Smell that faint, unique scent of ozone and starlight that always clung to her. He wanted to say something profound, but all that came out was a slightly strangled, "Oh. Well, good." A tiny smile played on her lips. "Indeed, navigator. Good." She straightened up, though her hand remained on his arm for a moment longer than strictly necessary. "The Codex. It has shown me something. A flaw in their terraforming device. A specific harmonic frequency that could disrupt its core destabilizer. But reaching it will be perilous." The moment of intimacy passed, but something had shifted between them. An invisible thread of connection woven in shared vulnerability and nascent understanding. The repairs to the Void Singer were completed, and her engines hummed with renewed power. The conceptual cloak was still damaged, but Kale had managed to create a localized, short-duration stealth field they could use for infiltration. Their purpose was clear: Xylos. As they journeyed towards the besieged planet, the Living Codex became their constant companion. It guided them through treacherous, unmapped regions of space, revealing hidden hyperspace corridors that bypassed shifting hand patrols. It showed them images of Xylos in its full glory, a world of crystalline forests that sang in the solar winds, oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life, and the Lumina, beings of pure light and gentle grace, whose entire civilization was based on harmony and artistic expression. The contrast with the images of the shuffling hand's brutal machinery, tearing into that beauty, was sickening. Lyra'eth grew more confident in sharing her empathic perceptions with Elias. "The planet weeps," she told him one cycle, her hand resting on the cool metal of the bulkhead, as if she could feel Xylos's pain through the ship itself. "The Lumina, their collective spirit, is a song of sorrow and fear. The harvesters feed on it." Elias, watching her, felt his resolve harden into adamantine. He was no warrior, no hero, but he was a navigator, and he would help guide Lyra'eth to her destination. And he was a man who was, much to his own surprise, falling for an alien empath who carried the weight of worlds on her slender shoulders. The Living Codex revealed the shifting hand's specific target, the Hurt Crystal of Xylos, a colossal geode deep within the planet's mantle that acted as a natural amplifier for the planet's life-giving energies. The despoiler seed they planned to implant there would not just kill the planet, but convert its unique energies into a deadlight frequency, a beacon for their kind and a source of immense power for their resonant siphons. "They are not just destroying a world," Lyra'eth said, her voice trembling with controlled fury. "They are committing soul murder on a planetary scale. Then we stop them," Elias said, his voice quiet but firm. He met her gaze, and in her eyes, he saw not just the echo of creation, but a woman he was increasingly desperate to protect, to fight alongside. "Tell me the frequency, Lyra'eth. Tell me how we use it." She took his hand then, her cool fingers lacing with his. It wasn't a romantic gesture in the human sense, not yet, but a Cathar acknowledgement of shared purpose, a telneral forming not from ancient tradition, but from immediate, undeniable necessity and a burgeoning, unspoken affection. The Codex says the frequency must be delivered directly to the despoiler seed's control interface, just as it reaches full power. A precise harmonic counter pulse. It will require perfect timing, and it will be heavily guarded. Elias squeezed her hand. "Then we'd better be perfect." He tried for a confident smile, though his heart was pounding a nervous rhythm. He was a star charter, easily flustered by a pretty smile, let alone an interspecies crisis. But looking at Lyra'eth, her luminous eyes filled with trust and determination, he felt a courage he didn't know he possessed. For her, for Xylos, he would face whatever horrors the shifting hand could unleash. Their unexpected union, forged across the stars, was about to be tested in the crucible of a dying world, as they fought not just for love, but for new life itself. Xylos loomed in the Void Singer's main viewscreen, a once vibrant jewel now scared and weeping. Dark, ugly veins of industrial blight spread across its continents, converging on a massive, fortress-like structure built around the primary drilling site that led to the planet's core. Shifting hand vessels swarmed around it like carrion birds. The airwaves were filled with their harsh, guttural commands and the faint, almost imperceptible lament of the Lumina, a psychic cry of anguish that Lyra'eth felt like a physical blow. Their main operations hub, Lyra'eth breathed, her face pale. The despoiler seed is being lowered into the planetary mantle as we speak. The Living Codex indicates we have less than 2 Kepler orbital cycles, roughly 6 Earth hours before it reaches the heart crystal and activates. Elias studied the tactical display, his mind racing. Their defenses are formidable. Multiple layers of energy shields, patrol craft, ground-based emplacements. He zoomed in on the central structure. That's got to be where the control room for the drill and the seed is located. Kale has modified the short-range stealth field, Lyra'eth said. It will get us past their outer sensor net, but we'll have to proceed on foot from the perimeter of their excavation site. The field won't mask our life signs from close-range biological scanners. So, stealth and speed, Elias summarized, feeling a familiar knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. This was far beyond any survey mission. What about resistance inside? The Codex shows minimal internal patrols near the core access shaft. Their arrogance is their weakness. They do not expect anyone to penetrate this far. Lyra'eth touched a control, and a schematic of the drilling platform appeared. The control room is here, adjacent to the primary conduit. The despoiler seed will pass through it on its final descent. And the harmonic counterpulse? Elias asked. How do we deliver it? Lyra'eth produced a small, crystalline device, no larger than his thumb. It pulsed with a soft, internal light. The Codex attuned this resonator. It must be placed directly onto the seed's control interface. Once activated, it will emit the counter frequency. But it's a one-shot device. If we mistime it, or if they detect it too soon. Boom, Elias finished grimly. Or worse, it accelerates the process. Precisely. Lyra'eth met his gaze, her own unwavering. Kale and Terrell will remain on the Void Singer, providing remote support and preparing for immediate extraction if we succeed. This is for us to do, Elias. She used his first name naturally now, a small intimacy that sent a shiver down his spine despite the looming danger. He nodded, taking a deep breath. All right, let's go save a world. The bravado felt thin, but her quiet confidence was infectious. Using the salvaged conceptual cloak components, Kale managed to get the Void Singer close enough to deploy a small shuttle, its own form blurred and distorted by the localized stealth field. Elias and Lyra'eth, clad in dark, non-reflective environment suits, piloted the shuttle through a meteor-scarred canyon, avoiding shifting hand patrols by a hair's breadth. The silence in the cockpit was thick, broken only by their synchronized breathing and the hum of the stealth field. They landed the shuttle in a shadowed crevice, near the edge of the massive excavation site. The scale of the shifting hands operation was horrifying. Giant machines clawed at the planet's surface, their metallic shrieks echoing across the ravaged landscape. The air tasted of burnt rock and metallic dust. Stay close, Lyra'eth murmured, her empathic sense already extended, scanning for immediate threats. I can feel their avarice. It's like a psychic stench. They move like ghosts through the industrial wasteland, Elias relying on his navigator's sense of direction and Lyra'eth on her empathic awareness. Several times, she pulled him back from a patrol, just moments before they would have been spotted, her hand gripping his arm, a silent warning. Each touch, however brief, sent a jolt of awareness through him. They reached the base of the central structure, a monstrous edifice of dark metal and throbbing energy conduits. The main entrance was heavily guarded. The Codex showed a secondary access point, Lyra'eth whispered, pointing to a maintenance conduit higher up the structure. Less guarded, but the climb will be treacherous. The climb was an understatement. The conduit was narrow, slick with industrial lubricant, and poorly lit. Elias, despite his general lack of athletic prowess, found a grim determination fueling him. Lyra'eth moved with an almost supernatural grace, her Cathar physiology clearly adapted to such challenges. He, on the other hand, scraped his knuckles, barked his shins, and nearly slipped several times, only Lyra'eth's quick reflexes saving him from a nasty fall. Are all humans this gravitationally challenged? She asked once, a hint of amusement in her voice as she hauled him up onto a narrow ledge. He could feel her amusement, a light teasing ripple. Only when trying to impress hyper-agile alien empaths while saving a planet. Elias grumbled, wiping sweat and grime from his brow, though a reluctant smile tugged at his lips. Even in mortal danger, his flustered nature found a way to surface. Finally, they reached an access hatch leading into the structure's interior. Lyra'eth used a Cathar multi-tool to bypass the electronic lock, and they slipped inside. The corridors were dimly lit, humming with the thrum of powerful machinery. The air was cold, sterile. The core access shaft is this way, Lyra'eth said, consulting a schematic on her wrist display, cross-referenced with information from the Living Codex, which she seemed to be able to access mentally now. We need to hurry. I can feel the despoiler seed. It's descending. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing softly in the metallic corridors. Twice they had to flatten themselves into alcoves as shifting hand guards, brutish figures in heavy armor, clomped past. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs, but Lyra'eth's calm, focused presence was a steadying influence. He could feel her empathic awareness like a shield around them, anticipating threats, guiding their movements. They reached a heavily reinforced door marked with ominous symbols. This is it, Lyra'eth whispered, the control room for the planetary core drill and the seed deployment. She began working on the lock, her fingers flying over the interface. Suddenly, a voice, cold and laced with an oily amusement, echoed from a hidden speaker. Well, what have we here? Unexpected visitors. And one of them, Kepler. How delightful. Lyra'eth froze. Elias spun around, searching for the source of the voice. Panels slid open in the walls, revealing hidden weapon emplacements. Red targeting lasers crisscrossed the corridor. They were trapped. A holographic image shimmered into existence before them. It was a male figure, humanoid but with unnervingly pale skin and eyes like chips of obsidian. He wore ornate dark robes, and a cruel smile played on his thin lips. This was Morian Vask, the architect of Xylos' doom, the grand harvester of the shifting hand. Lyra'eth of the Cathar, Vask purred, his gaze lingering on her. The echo of creation herself, gracing my humble operation. I should be flattered. My resonance siphons have been eagerly anticipating a taste of such potent quintessence. His eyes flicked to Elias, and her human pet. An amusing addition. Elias bristled, but Lyra'eth placed a calming hand on his arm. Morian Vask, she said, her voice cold as interstellar ice. Your desecration of Xylos ends now. Vask chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Ends, my dear. It is merely beginning. Xylos will be a testament to the shifting hand's power, a beacon of glorious decay that will feed our ambitions for centuries. And your unique energies, Echo, will accelerate the process wonderfully. You underestimate the resilience of life, Lyra'eth retorted, her eyes blazing. And the power of those who defend it. Resilience. Vask sneered. Hope, love, quaint notions. Delicious seasonings for the despair we harvest. Your Living Codex led you here, I presume. A fascinating artifact. Pity it will soon belong to me. The door behind them hissed open, and two heavily armed shifting hand guards stepped through, their weapons trained on Elias and Lyra'eth. Now, Vask said, his smile widening. Let's not prolong the inevitable. Surrender the Codex, Kepler, and perhaps I'll make your human's demise quick. Lyra'eth didn't move. Elias could feel the coiled power within her, the storm gathering. But he also felt her calculating, searching for an opening. The crystalline resonator was clutched tightly in her hand. The Codex is not a trinket to be bartered, Vask, Lyra'eth said, her voice dangerously soft. And neither are we. Then all hell broke loose. Lyra'eth moved with blinding speed. One moment she was standing still, the next she was a blur of motion. She lashed out with an energy pulse from her palm, not the overwhelming wave from before, but a focused blast that sent one guard sprawling. Simultaneously, Elias, acting on pure instinct, ducked under the second guard's clumsy attack and slammed his shoulder into the alien's midsection, sending him staggering back into his companion. The control room? Lyra'eth yelled. Already at the door Vask had emerged from, her multi-tool flashing as she bypassed its lock. Vask's holographic image flickered with annoyance. Impressive. But futile. More guards were appearing at the end of the corridor. Elias scrambled after Lyra'eth as the door to the control room slid open. They burst inside, and Lyra'eth slammed the door shut, engaging the emergency locks. The control room was a circular chamber, dominated by a massive holographic display showing the despoiler seed's terrifying descent into the planet's core. A single, terrified-looking shifting-hand technician cowered at a console. "Get away from there," Elias yelled, though the technician already looked ready to bolt. Lyra'eth was already at the main console, her fingers flying, interfacing with the alien systems. "The seed is accelerating. We have minutes, perhaps less." Heavy thuds began to rain down on the door. Vask's voice, now amplified and filled with rage, boomed through the metal. "You cannot hide, Cathar. This world is mine. Elias!" Lyra'eth cried out, pointing to a conduit near the central display. "The interface port for the resonator? It's shielded. I can't disable it from here while holding off their override commands." Elias saw a small, heavily armored panel. He rushed to it, pulling a pry bar from his utility belt. The metal was incredibly dense. He strained, grunting with effort, the pry bar bending. "They're cutting through the door," Lyra'eth warned, sparks flying from the console as she fought Vask's hacking attempts. He could feel her immense concentration, her empathic power now a focused lance, battling the shifting hand's insidious code. The door began to buckle inwards. Elias, with a desperate roar, put all his weight into the pry bar. With a screech of tortured metal, the panel ripped open, revealing the glowing interface port. "No. Lyra'eth! Now!" She spun, the crystalline resonator in her hand, and lunged towards the port just as a section of the door blasted inwards. Morian Vask himself stepped through the smoking gap, flanked by elite guards, his face a mask of fury. He raised a hand, crackling with dark energy. "Too late, Echo." Lyra'eth didn't hesitate. She slammed the resonator onto the port. "For Xylos! For life!" she cried, her voice ringing with power. A brilliant, azure light erupted from the resonator, flooding the room. A high-pitched harmonic tone filled the air,